Hi, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of Facebook marketing. This week we are going to be talking about advertising. Just as a reminder, my name is Ali Casella and I am your instructor. You can find me on Twitter at Ali Casella. And there are actually still a few of you who haven't joined the Facebook group yet. So if you haven't done that yet, please do join it. And if you are part of the Facebook group, don't forget to participate in the discussions. You can post your own articles. You can comment on some of the articles or reminders that I've posted up there. It's a place for you to get feedback on things about Facebook marketing. So if you have questions about the assignment that you think will be relevant to others, you can post them. We have had some really great discussions and there have been some great articles shared. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at what's going on in the Facebook group, please do so. And if you find that you're missing out on what's going on there, you can turn on notifications for the group so that you're notified every time that you log into Facebook. This week is going to be a long one, so grab your tea or your water or your glass of wine or beer, whatever, some snacks. We've got a lot to go through when it comes to Facebook advertising. So today we're going to be covering campaign goals, audience targeting. We'll talk about placement, creative and copy. We'll talk about budgets, which is probably the thing that I talk about with students and clients the most. And we'll talk about some other considerations when you're thinking about doing Facebook ads. And then we'll go through assignment 2 together. So just before we get started, I wanted to preface this by saying Facebook advertising could be its own course, in my opinion. You also always need to keep educating yourself on Facebook advertising and just social media advertising in general because things change so often. Algorithms change, tactics that seem to be working in January aren't working anymore in February. So it is something that you always want to keep abreast of. So in your additional reading section for this week, which I'll just pop up here, there are a lot of different resources here for you, and I'm giving you these resources because I think that they will be helpful for you. I'm not expecting you to necessarily read every single one of them, but even if you just go through and scan the ones in the additional reading section, I think that it will be helpful for you. And these are also places that I trust. So I've been working in this industry for about 10 years now, and these are the places that I trust. It's places that that I regularly go to for my social media marketing information. And so that's why I'm giving you these resources. They're not just like, oh, I Googled and these are the top results. These are places that I go back to all of the time to benchmark where my information is coming from. And then the required reading, although you don't have a final exam, so, I'm not going to quiz you on the contents of Buffer's Facebook ads guide. These are things that I think are supplemental to what I'm able to cover in a lecture, and I find that they will be really helpful resources for you. So it's ways that you can, when you're continuing on in your career as a digital marketer or social media marketing, you'll have these resources for in the future. So that's just something that I wanted to comment because I've had a few questions about what the expectations are with these additional readings. My expectations are that you're going to read the required reading section so that you'll be able to better understand your assignments and better understand the context of my lectures. And the additional reading is just information for you. I've either pulled from these resources to have examples in lecture, and you'll see a lot of that this week, or I think that they're just really excellent additional pieces of information for you. If you do want to you should want to keep up to date with changes to Facebook. I highly recommend bookmarking or putting into your Feedly account if you've now started to use Feedly more often, the facebook.com/business/news. So this is a site that you can go to get all of the updates from the mouth of the beast, if you will. You can do all sorts of things in terms of finding the right information for you. So if you want to look at just the adverts and the advert interfaces updates, you can do that very easily. And then you can read all of the most recent updates from Facebook themselves. So I find that this is a really great example of where to go if you're looking for updates and changes. But then when it comes to looking at switching up your tactics and the way that you actually go about using these tools, then the additional resources that I've given you will be helpful. And then we're going to talk a little bit about custom lists when it comes to Facebook, and we'll go a little bit more in depth. But I just want to say right off the bat, before you start thinking about using custom lists on Facebook, I think that everyone should get up to date on CASL compliance. Especially if you are Canadian based, which I think pretty much everybody in this class is. If you're marketing to Canadians, or if you're a Canadian company doing marketing, you need to be CASL compliant, and CASL stands for Canada Anti-Spam Legislation. So when we're talking about uploading lists into Facebook, not only is it against Facebook terms of services to upload a list that you've purchased, not built yourself, but it's also against Canada's anti-spam legislation, and you can have some huge fines. And I know that Porter got dinged with a pretty big fine. It was either last year or the year before, and there are a couple of other companies that have been dinged for not being CASL compliant. So we just want to make sure that everybody is playing by the rules. All right, let's get started. So when you're designing your Facebook advertising campaigns, the first thing that you want to do is set your goal. And so there are several different options within the advertising platform that you can choose, and each objective will have a different level of appropriateness. So I'm just going to take you, we're going to be switching between these lecture slides and the actual advertising interface. So to get to the advertising interface, you click on, you're in your profile, and then you click on create adverts. And so this is where you deal with your advertising. So these are the different marketing, this is how you'll start. So these are the different marketing objectives. And it always takes a little bit to load. So when you click on each one, or you hover over the information bit on each one, it'll give you an example of, or an explanation of why you would use each different marketing objective. So, and it helps you by kind of categorizing them into each different objective stream. So when you click on an objective, it'll give you an example where you can continue. I just wanted to show you that there are some different ones. So if you go to engagement, this is where you can choose the difference between, okay, I want post engagement, or I want more page likes. So that's something that sometimes you can get confused with. If you, oh, brand awareness, that must be more page likes. It's not necessarily what it's doing. It's just doing more of like, this brand exists, not trying to drive people towards clicking the like button on your page. So this is where you would do post engagement, page likes, if you want to get more event responses, or if you want people to claim an offer, this is where they can do that as well. So these are the different marketing objectives. And so you really need to set your goals. What do you want to do before you get this process started? Determining how you set your objective is really about knowing your audience and where they are in your funnel. And I'll use the term funnel loosely. So when we're talking about our marketing funnel, there are a ton of different theories behind marketing funnels, and when it comes to social media, does the funnel even exist? But for the purposes of this lecture, let's consider that this is the typical marketing funnel. So, you know, if you're not in this funnel yet, you have no idea, you've never had any interactions with a specific brand. The next stage is awareness. So somebody is aware of your brand, but they don't really know much about it. It's like, oh yeah, I've heard of that company before. Then it's familiarity. So it's like, oh yeah, I know of Buffer. They do something with social media marketing or management, something like that. Then once they get more familiar with your brand, it's like, okay, I'm considering this. So I know about Buffer, and I like what they stand for. They've got some really great articles, and I'm thinking about upgrading my plan to an awesome plan so that I can, really use Buffer. Then the next part of that funnel is that the person actually makes the decision. So often, depending on what product or service it is, the timelines for this can change. So if it's somebody buying software that's going to cost them $5 or $10 a month, that this conversion could go quite quickly. If you're talking about buying a car, this could be a year or two, depending on how ready a person is. So Then you go into your, maybe it's a purchase, it could be a donation, it could be a booking, whatever it is that your, main conversion is. And then after you've made that sale, you convert them into loyal customers. So I always use Buffer as an example. I'm obviously very loyal to Buffer. I'm a brand evangelist, if you will. I think they're really awesome. I love their product. I love what they stand for. And all of their employees seem to be pretty cool based on, their personal profiles. So this is kind of what you want to be considering when you're thinking about your objectives for your Facebook advertising. At what stage in the game are people at? If you know that people have already purchased, so say for example, and we'll talk about this a little bit more with custom audiences, if you know, if you've got a list of people, of emails of people who have already purchased your product and you already know that they're in this, this blue box in the funnel, if you will, then your objectives are going to change. So if you already know that somebody has purchased something and maybe you want to convert them to a repeat customer, you're going to want to use these conversion objectives as opposed to brand awareness. You're going to be wasting your money by targeting people who have already made a purchase. They're beyond aware of your brand. They are already a customer. So you don't want to be wasting your money, your advertising money, on awareness with these people. Maybe you want to convert them to get another sale, or hey, maybe you have a new app, so you want to get them to install your app, things like that. So you want to be very mindful of where people are at in this stage. So again, what I mentioned, that there are a lot of different theories behind marketing funnels, and the common theme right now amongst social media marketers is that there might not even be a funnel when it comes to social media marketing. So you want to keep these things in mind, that people are people are finding out about you at different stages in the game. Some people might be desperate for a product or service, and they're looking for from friends to say, hey, does anybody have the name of a great dog groomer in Toronto? So they might not even be aware of you, but a friend will recommend it, and all of a sudden they go from not aware to consideration, or not aware to purchase, based on a friend's recommendation on social media. So there are all these different things that you need to consider when we're talking about determining your objective. And there is a whole section in your additional reading about marketing and sales funnels, and there are a couple different articles. Buffer does a really good job of grabbing everybody who's been talking about these different funnel theories and putting it into all one big article. But if you want to get nitty gritty and read about what each person is reading, what each person is saying, then those articles are in your additional reading as well. So this is Buffer's kind of theory of social media funneling, is that it's a spectrum. So people can come in at any stage of the game. It doesn't necessarily move from right to left, and it doesn't always necessarily move in a circle, but these are all of the different touch points, or quote funnel names, or funnel stages that people can go through. So there are all these different ways that people can come at you, and that means that knowing exactly what you want people to do is going to be very important when it comes to creating a successful and cost-effective Facebook advertising strategy. So let's talk about audience targeting, because this is going to be the key thing when it comes to Facebook advertising that will make you successful. And the ability that you have to target audiences within your Facebook Facebook ad platform, is a marketer's dream come true, because people on Facebook are constantly putting out information that advertisers can use to target them. So here's some considerations. Do you want to go broad with your target audience, or do you want to go really niche specific? Do you want to target new people, or do you want to target your loyal customers or your loyal followers? These things are really important to consider, because it will change not only your potential reach, but it will also change how cost effective your ads are. And depending on how well you create your target audience and your brand your advertising, creative, and copy can have a huge impact on your relevance scores. And we'll talk about that towards the end. But basically, if you are advertising and you're going super broad with your audience target and you're not really honing in enough, and you've got this really, really broad audience and this super generic ad, your relevance score on your ad is going to go down, and that means that your ad is going to be served less often, and if it is served, it's going to cost you more. So these are things that you want to consider. Again, you want to consider what stage in the funnel are your customers at, because if you want to target brand new people, maybe you're trying to build a brand new Facebook page, you just started your Facebook page and you want to try and get more likes, then you are probably going to go a little bit more broad because you don't have anybody, an existing Facebook audience to market to. So you might go a little bit broader, you're looking for new people, but again, you still want to target people that are going to be relevant for your audience. And then where are you targeting them? So there are 3 different places that you can put ads in the Facebook world. You can put it on people's desktop news feed, on the desktop right-hand column, or you can put them in the mobile news feed. So if you are targeting people on mobile, you need to know, is your website mobile optimized? If you're trying to get people to click through to your website and you're targeting them on mobile, and then they get to your website and they can't do anything because your website's not mobile optimized, then you've just wasted a ton of money. So you need to think about not only what do you want them to do in the Facebook universe, but what do you want them to do throughout the entire customer journey. If you want to leverage people who are already fairly far down your funnel, then you want to do custom audiences and do these hyper-targeted advertisements. So custom audiences, there are basically 4 different ways. And if you are looking for more information about this online, there is a section in your additional reading. But if you want to know what Google terms to use, remarketing and retargeting are the terms that are often used to talk about these types of things. And so remarketing and retargeting isn't exclusive to Facebook. You can use these tactics in Google AdWords and on Twitter. So these are some things to consider when you're looking more broadly when you're doing your social media advertising. But of course, for this course, we're going to stick to what we're focused on, which is Facebook. So you can use your existing Facebook fans. You can use existing email marketing lists. You can use your sales lists, so people who have already been a customer, and you can use something called a Facebook pixel. So let's talk about your existing fans if you want to create a custom audience around these fans. So say you've written this really awesome new blog and you want to advertise this post. And let's say that it is you want to get some really relevant people, because within your blog post there's this really awesome call to action, but you know that people are going to need to be already aware of your brand before they're going to click, just based on your past experience. So you decide to advertise to people that are going to read this blog. So let's say that you're a sports company and this is about women in sports. So you want to target 20 to 40-year-old females who live in Toronto who are sports fans. This is awesome. And you really want to make sure that the people who are reading this article either know about your company or are ready to kind of pounce on the offer at the bottom of your page. So you can click a subset of people that already like your page. So this is really interesting because if you have a bunch of people on your page, say you've got, 1 million followers on your Facebook page, first of all, congratulations, you've built up this really great community, presuming that you've done it well and that you haven't used any skeezy tactics like purchasing likes or things like that. So you've got this great community already built up, but you have, it's fairly wide ranging because you talk about all sorts of sports information. It's not necessarily just focused on women in sports. So if you've got this post that you know you want women to read, you can target a much narrower group of people from your Facebook page so that you're not wasting your ad money on people who might not click right away to see your advertising. So maybe you've got this awesome new blog, it's about women in sports, and at the bottom you've got an offer for women's only basketball club or something like that, let's say. And so it's not relevant for men because they're not going to benefit from that offer. So they're going to read this article and, maybe they're going to be like, oh, this was a great article about women in sports. But then they get to the bottom and it's like, oh, darn, I can't benefit from this. So exit, on to the next thing. If you really want to make use of your advertising dollars, you can target down to people who already like your page based on the very specific demographics that you're looking for. And all of a sudden, you've got a much more successful and probably much more cost-effective advertising campaign because your relevancy score is going to be higher, which means you're going to beat out people in the bidding wars of Facebook advertising, which we'll talk a little bit about. And the audience members that end up clicking and going to your blog are going to be happier. So the other option is to upload your lists. So you can take a list from MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or whatever you use for your email marketing, Salesforce, whatever. You can download your list and upload it to Facebook. Again, I can't stress this enough. It is absolutely against Facebook's terms of service to upload lists that you've paid for that you haven't built yourself. And it's also against Canada's anti-spam laws. So you've got a section about CASL compliance in your additional reading. If you haven't read about it before, I highly recommend you do it. Not only is it kind of like against the rules to be uploading these purchase lists, they're not effective. You can't target interests very well. You don't already have a relationship with these people, so they're not really a custom audience. It's kind of like cheating the system, and it's cheating the system in a way that's not going to help you win. So you're cheating to lose, which is not cost effective, in my opinion. You're already paying for this list, and then you're going to have to pay again to market to that list on Facebook. It just doesn't make sense. So don't buy your lists. But do use good marketing lists that you have. If you have a really great high converting email list, then I go for it. Upload those lists into Facebook, into the custom audience section, and you'll be doing a really good job at doing some really niche marketing. So then you want to think about the differences between your email marketing list and your sales list. You don't want to treat these the same in terms of the advertising that they get. So your email, first of all, they're different marketing personas entirely. So your sales list is people who have already purchased something. So they're already at a different stage in the game. They're people that you want something different from them. So you maybe want to get some brand loyalty, or you want them to be repeat customers. So you want to make sure that your advertising copy and your advertising creative is geared towards these people and their specific, or what you specifically want them to do. Your email list, I'm considering email to be your marketing list. So they haven't transferred over to your sales list yet. These are people that you're still trying to convert into buying customers. They're people that you want to think, oh, these are people, I know your brand. I want to think about your brand more often. And they have different things that they're looking for from your company. So you want to make sure that your advertising copy isn't the same as your sales list. So for your sales list, maybe you are selling artist pencils. So, they're not just the crappy pencils that you go and buy at the dollar store. They're fancy artist pencils. They're really high quality. If you have a sales list, your advertising copy could say something like, need a refill on your super cool brand pencil crayons. You can have it very specific to make sense for somebody who's already bought the product. You wouldn't want to have that same advertisement sent to somebody who hasn't already purchased the product, because it's like, well, I don't have it in the first place, so I don't need to replace it. It's more like you want to say, do your colored pencils perform this well? And maybe you have some really great art examples of how well those different pencils perform. So that's just an example of the differences that you want to create when it comes to your ad copy. You want to make sure that you are leveraging your ability to target so specifically on Facebook by giving people hyper-specific ads. Facebook Pixel, this is a bit more advanced. So basically, what it is you have a piece of code that you put onto your website, and based on people who have visited your website, you can target those people for advertisements. So I have an example. I've been obviously doing a lot of different research and making sure that all of my content is up to date for these lectures. So I've been visiting a lot of pages that talk about Facebook advertising, that talk about different templates, all that type of stuff. So when I'm on Facebook, on my right-hand side of the screen, these are two ads that I've been seeing a lot recently. It's from digitalmarketer.com, and can't remember what this was from. But basically, I clicked on both of them and realized, oh, I've been to these websites quite a bit, and I haven't filled in their download free guide now. So these guys are remarketing to me. What they've done is on their website, they've got a Facebook pixel, so they know that I have visited their website before because it's in the cookies of my browser. And when I go back to Facebook, because I don't log out of Facebook once I'm done on Facebook, I just go to a different web page, which I'm sure most of us do. Which means all of my cookies are in the same place, and Facebook knows that I'm visiting all these different websites. So I went to Digital Marketer, I read an article, but I didn't complete what they wanted me to do. So they were able to define using the different standard event codes that I didn't complete my registration or complete my download. So now they can come back to me and say, hey, don't forget about this customer avatar worksheet. I don't think these are the most successful ads in terms of copy or creative, because I wasn't so inclined to click, aside from the fact that I was actually looking for these remarketing advertisements for the purposes of this course. But this is what you can do with Facebook Pixel. And in your additional reading section, right here in the custom pixel, I have the instructions from Facebook that you can go through. I don't want to sit here and go through all of the different instructions because it takes a really long time, and I'm not a web developer, so I don't want to give you advice that's going to break your website. So this is something that if you do your own web development, there's step-by-step guides, or you can just send the information to your web developer, and you can get that information set up on your website really quickly. So if you've ever noticed on Facebook when you're on your desktop, maybe you've been at Mountain Equipment Co-op's website and you've been looking at a bunch of different things and you added stuff to your checkout, but you didn't actually go through with the purchases. You might notice on Facebook a day later, hey, don't forget about your cool new hiking boots that you have left in your checkout. So I see that all the time. I'll go through and say, oh yeah, I need to get camping gear ready for this summer. So I'll go on Mountain Equipment Co-op's website and look at different tents, or, oh, do they have any, cool things that my 1-year-old could need on a camping trip? And then all of a sudden, a day or so later, I'll see these ads for those exact products that I was looking at on Mountain Equipment Co-op's website. So it's just like a way to reinforce people's behavior that they're already doing on your website, bring it back to Facebook where people spend a ton of time, and remind them, hey, oh yeah, I was looking at that baby canoe hammock for my kid. Maybe I should go ahead and purchase that now. So this is another way that you can use custom audiences to really specifically target what people are doing with your advertisements. Okay, placement. So as I mentioned before, there are 3 placement options on Facebook. So the first one is the desktop newsfeed. So this is like when you're on desktop and you're scrolling through and people's posts are there. You might see articles from brands that you've liked or your friends post updates. So this is the newsfeed, and this is best for conversions. So if you want people to make a purchase, or if you want people to click through your website or sign up for your email news list, this is the best place to do that. The second place is the right column on desktop. So this is usually underneath all of the trending topics, things like that. It's the best place for retargeting and remarketing. So if you're using those custom lists, this is the best place to target those ads. And then the third place is on the mobile newsfeed. So there is no column. There's just one column on mobile when you're on Facebook. So posts will show up just as people are scrolling through with their thumbs, and it's best for discovery and brand awareness. So if you're looking to get more page likes, for example, or if you're looking for people to just be more aware of your brand, targeting them on mobile is the best option for that. And this is based on several different articles that I've read that are specific to Facebook marketing, and people have tested, rigorously tested these different Facebook ad placements and what they're best for. Of course, this is going to change over time. It's going to change based on how people are using Facebook. It's going to change based on how Facebook's algorithms work. So this isn't going to be set in stone forever, but for right now, this seems to be what's working best for marketers. Creative. Now I think audience targeting is the most important thing. So making sure that you've got the right goal, very important. Targeting your audience, super, super important. And just as important, if not a little bit less important, is your creative. So if you target people horribly and have these beautiful ads, you might get something. If you target people really, really well and have like decent ads, you're probably going to have a much more successful advertising campaign based on my experience. So what makes good creative? And this should really say creative and copy, but what works? Visual, super, super visual. Facebook is a visual platform. The algorithms on Facebook prioritize visual content, and especially video content right now. It needs to be relevant. So relevant to your audience's needs, relevant to the timing of your advertising. So, are you advertising winter boots in July? That might not be so relevant to people. Is it valuable to your audience? So being super relevant is great, but is it something that they need? That's a consideration. And do you have a clear call to action? So if your call to action is to like a Facebook page, that needs to be very clear. If the call to action is to make a purchase, that also needs to be really clear. And you need to have copy that persuades people to make those decisions. So let's take a look at some examples that work really well. And in your additional reading, there are some articles that have a ton more examples that work, and I've pulled from those because, of course, as I'm going through looking for advertising examples, there's none to be found. So when we're looking at different advertisements, always look at it through the lens of these four things. Is it visual? Is it relevant? Is it valuable? Is there a clear call to action? So NatureBox, first and foremost, it's incredibly visual, and this stands out to me because I'm a food person. I love to eat. I love to cook, and as soon as you have this really clean image of food and food porn, I guess you would call it, I'm going to be interested in looking at it. So NatureBox, pretty simple concept. You sign up for NatureBox, they deliver you this really wholesome, tasty box of food every month. And right here, they're saying you can try a free sample. So that's very obvious. Free trial is the biggest element in this in this creative. And that I think is the most important because people see free and they want to click. They do also note that the shipping is going to cost you, but I think like for the most part, people are like, oh, I see something free, I'm going to click. That's a very strong call to action. Similarly with Shutterfly, let's just make this a little bit bigger. Shutterfly does a good job. So Shutterfly is a photo service. So you can create all different types of products using Shutterfly. So you can do mugs, you can do, as it says here, pet tags, you can get collage frames, and all sorts of really cool stuff with your own photos. So right here, they do a great job of highlighting all of the different products that they offer by using an advertising carousel. So you can create a slideshow that has up to 6 images that people can kind of flip through and see what you're all about. And Shutterfly has done a really good job with their copy as well. So this is a President's Day sale, and they have the code, the 40% discount code right in their advertising copy, and it tells you the end date. So there's a sense of urgency. There's something really valuable. Presumably, it's super relevant to the people that they are targeting. They've obviously done their homework, and it's incredibly visual. So this is a really great job of something that's working. Okay, some more examples of things that work. So, Slack, for those of you who have never used Slack before, Slack is kind of like an instant messaging system that you can use with large groups of people. So, there are a lot of Slack communities out there. I know Buffer has a Slack community that you can join just as an individual, but they also have their own private communities for discussions in their office. I've used Slack many times with different agencies and clients. It's a way to have you can set up groups of people. So, say you've got one group of people working on the environmental charity campaign, and you want to have all these discussions within a group about that environmental charity campaign, and you want everybody to see it. So, instead of sending like a bunch of messages and clogging up your emails or always having to go to meetings and things like that, you can have this Slack account where you can have these discussions. It's really awesome. So, they've done a great job of kind of knowing their audience. So it's people who don't want to be sitting through these really, really long meetings. It's people who want to be efficient with their time in the workplace, and it's people who kind of have this sense of whimsy and fun in terms of their sense of humor, which is very much the Slack brand. So they've done a really good job with their visual. Their copy is super easy to read. Slack brings all of your communications together in one place. Super simple. And they've used these cards. So they've used one of the Learn More cards. So it means that the call to action is built right into the advertisement. Similarly with Google, even if you're not really interested in cloud platform or you don't already know what cloud platform is, you can't help but notice this ad. It's a lot of blue, which is visually compelling, especially on computer screens to people. And right off the bat, you see $300 in credit from Google. And even if you don't really know what cloud platform is, you might be compelled to click on this because $300 credit is $300 credit. That's huge. And again, they've used this Learn More card to directly get people to click on their advertisement. Shopify does a really good job with all of their ads, and they not too long ago ran this advertising campaign to get people to use Facebook as a way to sell their crafts. So, I mean, this is basically going head to head with Etsy, which I think is pretty ballsy. But so they've used this really great visual of somebody knitting, and they've selected a visually stunning image, and the colors pop. It's very obvious what this person is doing, and they have really nailed it in terms of their copy. No one should craft for nothing. Awesome. Sell your crafts on Facebook. Sign up. Yeah, I totally want to sell my crafts on Facebook. I knit all the time. Click, I want to make money off of it. So this is Shopify trying to make the online sale process super easy. And then this was another visually compelling ad to me. So I was working with a client who ran his own personal training business. So at the time, I was very keen on this type of content. And I think that this is a really visually compelling ad if you're targeting the right audience. So if you're targeting people who are super into physical training, you've got all of the right elements. So you've got a picture of somebody actually working out with a fairly heavy looking piece of equipment. So obviously you're targeting people who are interested in fitness. And then you're also saying, we can give you something that your personal trainer can't, which may or may not be true, but that's besides the point. I was interested. I clicked to learn more. And I learned that their product is $700 and incredibly expensive, but they got me to click, and that was their goal. They wanted people to click. They wanted people to find out more information about their product, and I think that they've done a really good job with their, especially with their visual piece, and then as well their copy is quite good as well. And this was just one last example of something that worked that I wanted to highlight. Asana is a a really great way to manage projects. I use Asana for a lot of different projects, and I love it. I found this ad to be incredibly visually appealing. The color pops quite a bit on your screen. And I think the copy that they've included right in the visual is very compelling. Get Asana, get results. Okay, what is this all about? My eye is drawn to free for teams of 15. Hello, I love free, and I often work in teams that are fewer than 15, so this is totally relevant to me. And then say goodbye to email, calendars, notepads, status updates, and sticky notes, and say hello to Asana. If I can get rid of all of that clutter in my life by using one product, I am down for this. So obviously, I'm going to click to sign up for more. And by the way, if you are looking for project management software for smaller teams, I highly recommend Asana. It's super awesome. I love it. Okay, so let's look at some things that don't work, because oftentimes when we're putting things together, um, it's easy to get kind of into your own space about the advertisement and the copy, and maybe if a lot of people are involved and it's kind of like writing advertisements by committee, things can get lost because everybody's priorities want to get um, up in the priority list. So this is 5 stars, and what they've done is they've got this video, which I'm sure somebody has said, hey, videos get a lot of traction on Facebook these days, so all of a sudden the marketing department was like, hey, let's get a video up there. Great, let's put it on Facebook and advertisement. But they've made a pretty big mistake here. Their copy says, own a restaurant, cafe, or retail boutique, it's time to get rid of your old punch cards. Restaurant, cafe, or retail boutique owners, these would be different marketing personas. So they are trying to lump all of these marketing personas into one place. And that's a big mistake, because a restaurant owner, a cafe owner, and a retail boutique owner have different needs. Now, if they had rewritten this to say, still using old punch cards, here's 5 reasons why you need to get rid of them, then all of a sudden it wouldn't matter if they were a restaurant owner, a cafe owner, or a retail boutique owner. It really matters that these people are using these old punch cards. So the call to action is also unclear. What do you want people to do? Do you want people to watch the ad, or do you want people to get rid of their punch cards? And how is watching this video going to help me get rid of my old punch cards? Are you going to tell me how? Are you going to give me an option to my old punch cards? I'm confused, so I'm probably just going to keep scrolling through this, even though the video is going to autoplay. It doesn't seem relevant to me. So if they haven't done a really good job with catching my attention in the first 2 seconds of this video while I'm scrolling through, then this ad has failed. But I've already seen it, so they've paid for it. So that's a huge mistake. Okay, here's another one that just, hurts my heart. So this is an advertisement for a sunglasses company, and they have a picture of a fish, and their copy is really just photo information. And to me, this is just like, this is a waste of an ad. I'm not sure how much they paid for it. They obviously paid quite a bit because they do have a lot of likes. But if you're trying to sell sunglasses, you should have a picture of your product, either somebody wearing it. If you're trying to target fishermen, then it should be a picture of a person fishing with your sunglasses on. The fish should be a minor portion of it, and your product should be a big portion of it. What do you want people to do? Do you want people to buy your sunglasses? Do you want people to click through to these different foundations, and why? I'm trying to find out information about sunglasses, and you want me to go to the Billfish Foundation or Qualifier Charters? I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. It's totally unclear to me, and it's a total waste of money. Oh, here's another one. Cringy. There's no visual at all. It's in mostly all caps, so it's incredibly difficult to read. Our eyes are not trained to read all caps. That's why newspaper headlines have always been in lowercase letters. It's easier for us to read lowercase, and so this is completely irrelevant. I have to click see more to see the rest of the post, because they didn't take into consideration that you only see a certain number of characters in any Facebook post. There's no clear call to action. See more is not a call to action. You're not getting anybody to do anything but read more information, and that's not helpful. So it's a really bad advertisement. And if they're advertising this event and they've got, all of these people that are coming, why wouldn't you leverage some of the, celebrity or personalities that are going to be showing up? You could target people who are already fans and put a big picture of those people, and all of a sudden you've done a better job of creating more visual content, making it more relevant and more valuable to people, and then keeping in mind that that you want to have a clear call to action. What do you want people to do? Stay tuned for upcoming events. Why are you wasting money on getting people to stay tuned? You should be saving your money for when you want people to purchase and click that link, because this is a waste of your money. So again, just as a reminder, the things that we want to be thinking about when it comes to Facebook advertisements is it visual? Is it relevant to my audience? Is it valuable to my audience? And is there a clear call to action? All right, let's talk about budgets. So as a digital marketer for the past 10 years, this is the most common question I get. How much does a Facebook ad cost? Without fail, anytime I bring up any social media platform and I talk about advertising budgets, it's okay, how much does a single Facebook ad cost me? And a lot of times it's because the people that I'm working with have never done any type of online advertising, so they're very much used to the old-timey advertising pricing, which is I buy this specific place in a newspaper. The newspaper has an estimate of what their circulation is going to be, and I pay, my $1,000 for my placement in the Toronto Star, and that's that. Well, that's not how Facebook works. So it depends, and it changes pretty much every day. I had gone through and done a little test advertising set just to see what my reach might have been. And then I changed, then I did it a week later, the exact same thing. And my potential reach had increased because the number of people trying to advertise to my specific target audience had decreased. So there are a lot of things that come into play when we're talking about Facebook advertising. So first of all, how do Facebook ads work? It's an auction system. So what happens is you set a budget by saying, I'm willing to spend X number of dollars for this advertisement. Then the ads go up for auction, which is an algorithm, and the winning ad gets shown, and your advertiser gets that bid amount deducted from your budget. So this is basically how an auction happens. So there's a bid amount, there is the quality of your ad and your advertisement's relevance that's taken into consideration, and then an estimate of your action rates. So whoever has the highest score wins that bid and their advertisement gets shown. So let's say that there are 3 different sections on Facebook that are, okay, we're going to put an ad in those 3 sections, but there are 4 people vying for that spot. Then an auction happens, and whichever 3 are the top in terms of score, their ads get shown, and that 4th person gets kicked out and put into a new auction. You don't really need to worry about this because you don't get to noodle around with this very much. It really just means that you need to have high quality advertising that's incredibly relevant, and you need to properly target people. So when you have a high quality ad that is relevant to your audience, and you are targeting people that are very likely to take the action that you want, then you are probably going to win your auction. In terms of bidding, there are 2 settings. You can do automatic or you can do manual. And I would highly recommend using automatic until you get a bit more of a sense of how ads work on Facebook. If you click the automatic version, it means that kind of Facebook does the bidding for you. and you're going to get the best price possible. If you choose manual, you run the risk of underbidding, so your ad will never get shown, or you can run the risk of potentially overbidding, or paying more than what it might be worth to you for that specific action. So here's an example. If you need to know what your goals are, you need to know what your time frame is, you need to know, how much money do you have in the first place, and what's your goal worth. So if your goal is a sale, and a sale of whatever you're selling is $300, then how much are you willing to pay for that lead that converts to a sale? So this is really thinking about your sales process, your conversion process, thinking about how much is a qualified lead worth to me. This is kind of where it comes into play with the automatic versus manual. If you know that you've got a conversion rate on your Facebook page of, 10% of the people that like your Facebook page will buy a product, then you can kind of estimate how much each of those likes is worth to you. And if you want to say, I don't want to bid any more than, I know that it's not worth it to me to pay more than $3 for a like on my Facebook page, then you can use that manual setting to say, I don't want to bid any more than $3. It doesn't mean that you're going to bid $3 every time. If the auction is, say, if the best price is 50 cents for that like, then you're only going to pay 50 cents for that like. But Facebook will know that if the auction is bidding higher because there are more advertisers vying for your target audience, they'll know that your cutoff is $3 for a like. I don't want to pay any more than $3 for a like because it's not worth it to me in terms of the ROI. So that's kind of getting into the nitty gritty. I don't expect anybody to be necessarily at that stage right now. And it is certainly a much more advanced look that you want to be. If you're working for a larger company, then this is something that you can be discussing with your sales team and your marketing team. If you have those numbers, if you know what things are worth to you, then you can become a much more efficient social media marketer. But I would say that if you are planning on just getting started with Facebook advertisements, that you just leave it on the automatic setting. That's what I use for the majority of the ad campaigns that I run, because I'm working with smaller clients that don't have these big sales departments that know exactly how much a lead is worth to them. So here's often where I get people to start. When it comes to my clients, or even when I'm working for my own company and promoting the work that I'm doing. Start at $5 per day. Test a bunch of different ads, measure all of those ads, take a look at what's working and what doesn't, and when you find something that works, you can pay a little bit more money. You can test with a little bit more money and see what's working for you and how things can evolve. So $5 a day, that's a latte per day, basically. I think that it's a good place to start. I'm not saying that you have to do $5 per day every day of the month, but if that's what you have in your mind when it comes to setting the timeline for your campaign and setting the schedule for your campaign, I think it's a good place to start. So speaking of scheduling, these are some things to consider. How long is your campaign length going to be? So again, you want to think about the relevancy and the value that you're bringing to people. And campaigns should have a start and an end date. You shouldn't just be running like, oh, well, I always want to get new likes on my Facebook page, so I always want to be running my Facebook page likes campaign. Well, not really, because each campaign has a specific goal, yes, but it also has specific copy and creative. And you don't want to keep reusing your same advertising over and over and over again, because people are going to get sick of seeing it and they're immediately going to tune it out. So as soon as somebody gets comfortable with seeing some sort of image or the same text over and over again, their brain is just going to totally zone that out. So if you're running a Facebook page likes campaign, think about how you're going to make it relevant to people. Are you going to use a new product that you're offering? Is that going to be the reason why people like your page? Are you going to be basing something around a holiday? Those are all things to consider. So I don't have a set amount of time for campaign length. I've run campaigns that are a week long. I've run campaigns that are a month long. And I've run campaigns that are a summer long. And I can tell you that that summer long campaign was the same government campaign. So it was decision by committee. And I didn't have any say over how long that campaign could be. So it ran for 4 months. And I can tell you that it was super awesome in the beginning of the campaign, and it totally dwindled out towards the end of the campaign because it was the same creative and the same copy that was being shown over and over again, because the approval time to get new information was way too long. That's a whole different story. Do you want to schedule things during high traffic times? So when you're looking in your Facebook Insights section, you can see when people are online and when people are offline. So if you want to target high traffic times based on the people that like your page, you want to target, I know Mondays at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I've got a huge spike in people being online. So I want to target my ads to run when those people are online. That seems like the obvious choice, but you also have to remember that you're competing with all of the other advertisers that want to target to those people because they're going to have the same insights that you do. So do you want to do something that I call long tail scheduling? So this is advertising on non-peak times, and this can potentially reduce your costs. So if you know that a lot of marketers are going to be going after people when they're online the most, I mean, that's fine. That's kind of like a brute force way of getting your advertising shown, but you're probably going to pay a lot more money if a bunch of other advertisers are doing the same thing. So if you take your target audience and say, well, these people are still going to be relevant to me even though they're not online at the same time that everybody else is online. I don't really care what time people are online. All I care about is whether or not they're relevant to what I'm trying to sell or what I'm trying to get them to do. So if I advertise on non-peak times, so say Mondays at 1 o'clock in the morning, I know that not a lot of my Facebook fans are online, but that doesn't mean that there isn't an audience there that can be a very successful target audience for me. So these are some things that you want to keep in mind. How do you know which to decide? Again, you need to test, measure, measure, measure. So you can do the same advertising campaign with the same copy, and you can set your schedule for a high traffic time and A/B test it. Does it work? But do I get a more cost-effective option when I'm using my high traffic times or when I'm using my long tail scheduling times? So those are different ways that you can test to see what's going to work for you. And then you want to think about timing. So are you basing your campaign around a holiday, whether it's a real holiday or one of those marketing days like National Donut Day? If you're using these days, it's going to be hyper relevant to everybody, but there's also going to be high traffic in terms of the advertisers that are trying to reach that same target audience, which means it's probably going to be a higher cost. So it might not be that effective. And then relevance, like I had mentioned before. Are you advertising winter boots in July? That might not be very relevant to people. However, a bathing suit deal in spring could be incredibly relevant to your target audience. And then if you are targeting around a specific brand audience or, a specific event, whether it's, some type of music event, if you're, marketing for a band, or maybe it's a fundraiser for a charity, you need to think about what is the timeline for this. If I know that my event is in May, then how soon do I need to start advertising, and what types of advertisements do I need to start running to get people through the funnel from, oh, I'm just hearing about this event, to, okay, I've purchased my ticket for this event. So if you've got an event on May 1st, you don't want to start advertising for it on April 29th, because it doesn't give people enough time to go through the different stages of, awareness, familiarity, consideration, purchase, loyalty. So you want to consider these things as well. So we are going to set up an advertisement for a Facebook page likes campaign. So when you are in your Facebook account, to get to your advert setting, you click your little arrow on the top right, and you hit create adverts. And then your advertising manager will pop up. So I've already got this up and on the go here. So what I want to do is I want to hit create advert. And I already had something on the go, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start again. So if we are going to do a likes campaign, the marketing objective that you want to click on is engagement. So from there, you click on page likes, which is the center button, and then you can give it a name, and you hit continue. So you pick the Facebook page that you want to use, and then I have a saved audience already done. So in this section, I'll show you what it looks like if you are creating a new one. So what you do is you can click your locations, so you can pick Canada, or you can get really specific. You can go with, if you want to do super geographic targeting, you can, do something like Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So you can just target everybody who lives within a 40-kilometer radius of Toronto. And so the tightest that you can get is 17 kilometers. So you just want to keep that type of information in mind. And this is really useful if you have a specific location. So say, you're a gym and you want to target people who are within travel distance of your gym in Toronto. It's important to keep these things in mind. You don't want to do all of Canada because it doesn't make sense to have somebody in Vancouver or Halifax seeing the page that you have for your gym, because they're never going to be your client, or it's very unlikely that they're going to be your client. So you want to try and get some of the low-hanging fruit. You can also select your age range. So the default that they give you is 18 to 65 plus. And I really think that this 65 plus is kind of crazy, because there are people on Facebook that are much older than 65, and I think the needs of somebody who's 80 are very different than the needs of somebody who are 65 plus, but this is just like typical marketing, advertising type age blocks. So you can select your age group, and this is where your audience persona profiles come in extremely handy. So if you look back to your first assignment and take a look at all of the persona information that you wrote down about your company, this is where you're going to be able to use it, is right here in this section. You can also enter a language. So if your page is bilingual or multilingual, you can add in all of your audiences. I only speak English, unfortunately, and some really horrible broken French, but the page is only in English. You can target men or women or both. And then this is where you can really get down into the nitty-gritties about things, and you can select all of the different activities and things like that. So you can, it'll populate some that it thinks might be relevant for you, or you can just go through and enter different things. So you could say, if you've got a food blog, you can start typing food and see what people are going to be thinking about. So you type in food, and then all of a sudden it gives you more suggestions. Food and drink, foodie, what else? Food and wine. And then you can get even more down into the nitty-gritty by going like Food Network. So you can have people that are interested, and you want to pay attention to everything that's in gray over here. So you don't necessarily want to target people who are employed by Food Network. You want to target people who are interested in the Food Network. And then, of course, you can also do the cooking channel, the allrecipes.com website. If people are often frequenting this website, then they might want to read more about your cooking. And then you can do connection type. So you can exclude people who like your page. So you don't really want people who are already viewing your page because they've already liked your page. You don't need them to see that advertisement again. And you can save your audience. So if you have different persona profiles, you can save each one as a different persona profile so that you can use it again. So that's what I'm going to do, because I've already gone through and saved an audience profile. So that's what I'm going to do. So you can see over here on the right hand side, you've got a little bit of like a dial, and it will let you know what your audience size is. So if you're super specific, it's not going to be as effective, and if you're super broad, it's not going to be as effective. So you want to aim to be in this green line, and if any of you are colorblind, specific is about to this first tick, and then you've got broad over here. So based on what I've got and based on the budget that has been preloaded, my estimated daily reach is between 1,500 and 6,800 people. So this is it's kind of a way for you to gauge how far your advertisement is going to reach in your timeline. So this is where you can kind of noodle around with things. So I don't want to do a daily budget. I want to do a lifetime budget because I know that I only have a certain amount of money that I'm going to spend, and it is absolutely not going to be $500. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a $20 budget, and I'm going to reset the time and watch how this audience size ticker changes. So right now it says my estimated daily reach is between 30 people and 190 people, but that's because I have this set for a month. So let's say I want to start it today and I want it to end on Sunday so that I can report back to you. So you can see that my estimated daily reach results have changed from 30 to 190 to 300 to 1,700. So it's still a very small fraction of my large goal, but based on the budget that I have, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see if $20 gets us anywhere. And what I want to do is I'm going to be paying for page likes. I'm going to let Facebook decide what my bid amount is. You could do minimum. So this is where it comes in handy if you are if you know a lot about your sales funnel, or you know a lot about your what a customer, what a like means to you. So if you know that for every 100 likes on your page, one of those people will convert to a customer, then you need to know what each of those likes worth based on the worth of your customer. So you can do some calculations after some time, after you've been on Facebook for a while and you have a bit of an understanding of what your ROI is. Then you can say, yeah, a Facebook page like is absolutely worth $5 to me because I know that if I get enough page likes, then I'll be able to make up that $5 super easily. Or maybe you say, oh, that's crazy. I think that's crazy. I'm not paying $5 per page like. I'm in a growth stage with this page and with this new blog. So I'm going to hit the automatic button. And hopefully that means I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck. And I would prefer to be charged when somebody likes my page, so we'll see how that works. And then my advertising schedule. So do I want my advertisements to run all the time? I'm going to set that to yes for now because I'm, again, just learning about this page. I don't have a ton of information or a ton of people to be basing my scheduling on. So again, if you want to, you can run your advertisements on a schedule. So, you can pick specific days, you can pick specific times in the day, or you can just hit every day for a certain amount of time. So this is a really easy drag and drop type of situation. So each hour has its own time block by each day, and you can just drag across and say, this is when I want my advertisements to run. Bada boom, bada bing. But for me, I'm going to run the advertisements all the time for this campaign. And then delivery type standard. So this is what I want to do. I want to show mine paced over time, and I don't necessarily want to accelerate my bid and accelerate my advertisements, especially because I don't have a manual bid. I only have my automatic, so this doesn't count for me. And I'm going to choose, so you can choose where your Facebook advertisements are placed. So you can do it in all devices, or you can do desktop only. If you're targeting people while they're on the go, then you might want to do mobile only. If your website is not mobile optimized, you might only want to do desktop only, although it's 2017 and most pages are mobile optimized. And you can check the different places where you might want to have your advertisements displayed. So for a page likes campaign, you can only display within Facebook, and you can only display within feeds and within the right column. But other placements for other types of campaigns, you can advertise within Instagram if you're doing a post, and you can advertise within the audience network. So the audience network is different websites that have decided to show Facebook's posts as advertisements throughout the network. So that is another option. But of course, for us, we're just going to be doing Facebook because that's all that's available for us. And I'm going to use all devices because my website is mobile optimized. So if people are clicking through to get more information, then they'll be able to do that. So then once you have finished setting up your audience target, you can hit continue. And this is where you get to add a little bit more information. So this is where you put your creative. So you can do images, or you can put different images within your single image, so that you've got a couple of different versions that are showing. You can do a single video, or you can do a looping video advertisement with up to 10 images. So I'm going to do the single image. And you can add your own images. You can browse free stock images. I highly recommend using your own images because stock images, they don't necessarily tell the right story, especially if you are a highly visual brand. So using your own images is just a way to show off your brand. So you can click to add more images. And because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to target foodies, for this one, I'm not going to use a painting picture. I'm going to use some food photos. Okay, and now all we have to do is hit place order. So that's it. Advertisement has been done, and now you sit back and you wait to see how things go. So we'll check back on this later in the week to see how everything is performing and see if there are some lessons that we can learn from this. Okay, so the advertisement has finished, and let's take a look at how things went. So I'm in my advertising account, I click on my campaign, and here are the results. And so there are definitely a few things to take into consideration. The first thing is that this was a brand new Facebook page, so definitely starting from scratch. And the only thing that I was doing to promote this page at the time was this advertising campaign. So this is very much taking what would normally be a multi-pronged approach to grow a Facebook page, and I'm just distilling it into one snapshot so that you can see exactly what advertisements do in a bubble. So I definitely want you to keep that in mind. So here's what we've got. We have $20 was my budget. $19.87 of that was spent. So you can see that when you set a budget, Facebook won't go over that budget. And the reason why my full budget wasn't spent was just because of how the cost breakdown went for my advertisements. You can see my overall reach. So the overall reach was just over 1,300 people, and that garnered me 11 likes. So what does this mean? It means that it cost me $20 to get 11 page likes. I'm not sure that I'm totally thrilled with that number, but this is also the first advertising campaign I've ever run with this Facebook page. So I don't have a baseline to know what advertisements for this niche market your normally costs. So this is a learning lesson. And then what else did we learn? Well, we learned that it did garner some decent reach, but what does that mean? So if you've been working brand side for a really long time, or if you've been working with other consultants for any period of time, you might have noticed that reach is a number that is often presented first. And I often have trouble with this one because, and we'll talk about this more in the KPIs and analytics section next week, but for me, reach is one of those vanity metrics that means nothing on its own. So this is why it's important to set goals right off the bat. We need to know what you want to achieve with your advertising campaign. So for me, I wanted to get more page likes because I knew that the more likes that my page had more relevant likes that my page has, the more likelihood that I am going to get organic reach long term when I'm posting on my Facebook page, which means more clicks to my website, which is helping me drive traffic because it's a brand new website. It's a brand new experiment for me. So this is 11 page likes is pretty low, and I mean, reach doesn't really help me, because if nobody is clicking, if people are just seeing my page and moving away, that tells me that either my advertisement wasn't as effective, my audience targeting wasn't effective, or I simply didn't have a large enough budget to reach a critical mass. So these are all different things that you need to play with and learn about. So this is why it's important to be testing and to have a regular budget available for you to use on Facebook and on any social media platform to do a little bit of testing with your advertisements. If you can spend just $5 a day and using that money to be testing different advertisement sets, testing different messages, testing different audience profiles, this is a really great way for you to test to see if the audience personas that you've made for your brand are effective. If you're not getting the conversions that you are expecting to be getting, you either need to say, are my expectations too high, or have I not nailed it with my marketing personas, or have I not nailed it with my messaging? So you can do a bunch of different testing to see how things worked out. And you can also take a look to see how each of your ads performed. So none of these are delivering anymore, and I had gone in and shut off a couple of the advertisements that weren't performing very highly. Well, it wasn't that this one wasn't performing highly, it was just that it was costing a lot. It was costing me a lot of money. More than $2.50 per page like, I think, is really, really high. Really anything over $1 I think is quite high. But again, this could be because the page is brand new. There isn't really a base level of fans already existing on the page. So you can see how each one has performed, which I think is really great, and it's a great way for you to learn. So you know that maybe certain images aren't the things that are working for you. If you run different advertisements that have different messaging, you can see which messaging works best if you are using the same audience. So there's all these different things to take into consideration. So that's a learning lesson from this one. And then I want to talk a little bit more about different kinds of advertisements that we can do. So we're going to talk about a boosted post next. And then I'm also going to talk about why advertising in a bubble isn't the most effective for you. All right, so let's see what a boosted post looks like. So here I am on my business page, and I can see that I have made my first post on my business page, and I shared it through my personal account. So all of my friends and family who were on Facebook saw this, and you can see that I have 531 people reached, which is remarkable because I only have 11 likes on this page because I created it yesterday. So what I'm going to do is, because I know that people are engaging with this, I'm going to boost this post. And this is an important thing. So you don't want to boost your post right immediately after you have set it up. Because you don't have any indication of whether or not people are organically engaging with the post, and that's important. So if people are organically engaging with your content, then that content is really good to boost to more people. So you don't want to spend your time boosting things that you don't know already work. So if you know that something is working, you can boost that. So I'm going to use just a really small budget to boost my post. And I'm going to use my Learn More button. And then what am I going to do? So I'm going to set up my targeting. So my shop is right now on Etsy has a lot of paintings because I'm doing the 100-day project where I do one painting every day for 100 days. And I had started it just for myself, and a bunch of my friends and family suggested that I open an Etsy store, so that's what I've done. So now I'm using it as an example for you in my Facebook class. All right, so I want to target women because most of the artwork that I have is kind of girly. Actually, you know what? Let's go with all, because men like artwork too. This is silly. I'm totally creating gender roles and I shouldn't. All right, but I do want to do Canada because right now I'm shipping anywhere in Canada. And then I want to add some demographic interests and behaviors. So let's think of some. So arts and crafts is an obvious one. So when you start typing something in, you'll see that you get all of these different all of these different suggestions. And so what I want to do is I want to select people, arts and crafts, apparently it's a movement, handmade crafts, handmade gifts, Etsy, handmade things, handmade with love. So all of these types of things, arts and crafts, of course. And you can really just go through and click through everything that makes sense. So I've done that. So now I can go back to browse and I can do, what are some good behaviors? Well, I definitely want engaged shoppers. That's really important. So I think this is good for me. Turn that off. So now I have everything all set up, and this is really driving me crazy that it's going back and forth. So I have all of these different demographics set up, and now I can press save. So there's my my audience saved, and now I can do my budget and duration. So what I want to do, I'm not going to run this one on Instagram because I have links within my post. And what I do want to do is I want to change my budget because I don't want to spend that much money. Let's see if I can do, let's just spend $5 and see what happens. How long do I want to run it for? Oh, so if I want to run it for 7 days, I have to have at least a $7 budget. So let's try running it for a day and see what happens. I'm not going to have any conversion trackings. I'm going to double check to make sure that all of my payment information is correct. And sure, I'll get some of those. So let's hit boost and see. Let's double check. It's not going to be on. Okay. Let's just hit boost and see what happens. Perfect. So you get a bit of a summary, and then you can always add more of your budget. And so now I can close it, and now we wait. Now we see what happens, and I'll give you guys an update on how this works a little bit later on, since I am recording this in advance like a real overachiever. Okay, the results are in, and this cool thing happened. So I follow Facebook Business, and so I have the bot in my Messenger app. So what happened was when my ad was finished, they sent me a message saying, do you want to see my promotion results? So I clicked sure, and then it sent me some information. So I can see that my post reached 238 people, and it got 4 post engagements. And then I was able to see more information about the people that it reached. So I can see the demographic breakdown. It's interesting to see that almost half were 65 plus, and 100% of those people were in Canada. And then I got to see a different look at some of the details for the engagement. So I got 3 link clicks and 1 post like. So I can then just boost right here again from my Messenger app, which is kind of interesting. But let's take a look in the analytics section to see what it looks like. So just give me a second here. So I'm just pulling up my advertising account, and I had all of my other conversations hidden there because this is my personal account. Okay, so let's take a look at my AdWords manager. So I'm going to click on my most recent. So, okay, here's where you can get a deep dive of all of your information. So we can see that this was my post that I promoted. I got 2 post engagements, 213 reach. My cost per engagement was really high. It was $2. And I spent, my budget was $5, but I only spent $4. So that was kind of interesting. And let's see what else we can do by clicking on my, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. View charts. Okay. So here it gives us a look at the performance in terms of the post engagements. So it didn't really get a ton of engagements, and I didn't really have any expectations for this one because, as I said, I've just started this Facebook page, so I don't really have a very large audience yet. I can take a look at the breakdown of my demographics. So I had suspected that it was going to skew a little bit older, but I had no idea that it was going to skew in this way. So that's kind of interesting. And then I can see that it was all entirely placed on Facebook because that's what I had originally wanted for it to see. So I can also look at my at my impressions, and we'll talk a little bit more about the difference between impressions and reach. So here you can edit if you wanted to reboost what you were doing, and you can see all of your activity. So, I mean, what did we really learn from a boosted post? For me, I learned that boosting a post is not necessarily the best thing to do if you're just growing a page. I didn't get any page likes based on this boost. I did, get in front of a few more people, but there's, no way that those people actually read it. So impressions is the number of times my advertisement was viewed. So it doesn't mean that it's unique views. It can mean multiple views. So if I see the same ad 3 times in a day, that counts as 3 impressions, but 1 reach. So that for me, impressions is an interesting way to show, more like a frequency of how often something's being shown. But for me, if you're going to choose reach versus impressions, I normally would go with reach. Just because that's an interesting indication of how many people overall are seeing it. But you need something else, another metric, when you are talking about advertising, especially to understand what that reach number is. So if I have 213 reach and only 2 post engagements, that ratio of engagement is quite low. And of course, you're not going to know what's good in terms of your ratios or what's standard or what you can expect until you run some more ads or until you have more posts and you are more active on your Facebook page so that you get a sense of baseline of how people are interacting. There's nothing for me to compare this against because I haven't run any other campaigns on this page and I have just started posting, so I don't even have that much organic reach to base it off of. So this was really an experiment and a demonstration of what you can expect if you were to just boost your post as opposed to doing a dedicated advertising campaign towards a specific goal like website views or sales or page likes. So that is how this campaign went. Let's talk really quickly about things beyond advertising. So we know that advertising has a spot within our Facebook strategies. It's important to have a little bit of a budget. It can help us with testing, it can help us boost our posts, and it can help us achieve our goals for sure. But as we saw, if you are starting something from scratch, it's going to take a lot of advertising money that you might not necessarily have. And good marketers like to get creative. So what are some creative ways that we can promote our Facebook pages without necessarily having to spend top dollars? An email list. If your company already has an existing email list that is that has people on it, that seems to get a lot of opens, definitely make sure that you tell people that you're now on Facebook, or you can send out a reminder for people on Facebook. If there is a reason for people to follow you on Facebook, that gives them a little bit more access than they would necessarily get from your email list, for example. That's a good reason to get them over to your Facebook account. You could also build this out based on an event. So maybe you are going to do a live Q&A session with the brand CEO, or maybe you're going to do a live demonstration of your product. You can send out an email list as a save the date to get people all over to your Facebook account, and then that way you're already going to have people coming over to like your page, and then you're also going to be increasing the number of views on that video when you go live. That's just an example of what you could do. You also want to make sure that you add your Facebook page to your email footers. So a lot of email providers like MailChimp, for example, will have a section where you can just add a social footer. You type in the URL to your Facebook page, and it automatically links it with a great Facebook logo, and you're set. So you want to make sure that you've got all of your social networks and your website and everything like that on the bottom of your email footers. Your website should have links back to your Facebook. As well, you should talk to your web developers to make sure that not only are there links to your Facebook page on your website, but you want to make sure that anytime your blog is posted to your Facebook page, that the right information pops up. So is there a photo that pops up automatically? So if your fans are sharing it, you have the right branding there, or you have the right visuals. You also want to make sure that you've got your like and share buttons figured out. So if people want to share directly from your Facebook or from your website, they can do that on their Facebook page should they choose. So you want to make sure that you've got website integration. Another thing is to invite friends, and this is something that I know would have boosted things quite a bit during my advertising campaign, but I wanted to keep it in a bubble to show you how advertisements work on their own. So if you're starting something for yourself, or maybe you're starting a new job, you can invite your friends to like a Facebook page. And this is especially useful for people in the nonprofit sector because, in my experience, I've not met somebody who works in the nonprofit sector who doesn't care at least a little bit about the cause that they're working for. So getting your friends involved by inviting them to like your page is a great way to bring people into the fold to share what you're doing with people. Facebook has an automatic invite friends type of button, so you can say, you click on it and say, invite friends to like your page. Another thing that you can do is send an individual message to each of your friends and actually take some time to craft a message to each of those people to get them to like your page. Obviously, this is limited in scope. It is very much a baseline, just getting started way to increase your page likes. But I find that friends can be incredibly supportive, especially if the brand that you're working for is something that means a lot to you. If it's a nonprofit, if you are starting your own personal blog or you're starting your own company, it can be really important to have your friends and family support you. Think about the different collaborations that you can do. If you are working with other brands or, well-known personalities or celebrities or media, you can see if there's room to do collaborations on social networks as well. So if you have somebody who has already a very large Facebook following post about you and tag your company or tag your page in their post, then you can get some additional likes that way as well. Also, running a contest can have people like your page, but for the most part, that's the like and share is typically frowned upon, and Facebook really wants you to get people to comment on your Facebook posts. So I know that we talked a little bit about the contests in our Facebook group, and if you missed that, there are definitely rules and regulations to what you can do in terms of contests on Facebook, and it's not just the rules that bind us within Ontario and Canada, it's rules that bind us when we check that I agree to the terms and services when we sign up for Facebook. So you definitely want to make sure that you're following the rules when it comes to collaborations, and especially when it comes to contests and collaborations. And then you can also engage via your page. So you can act as your page on Facebook, and you can start liking other pages via your page, and you can start engaging with those pages' posts. And so if you don't want to be spammy, of course. You do want to be relevant, and you want to be giving real feedback to people or real comments. But that's another way that you can get people to look at your page and potentially get more followers. So these are things just off the top of my head that you can do beyond advertising. There's also ways to integrate what you're doing to your live events. So if you're doing, in real life, real person events, maybe you're at trade shows or you've got a huge fundraising event, where are the opportunities that you have to get people to like your Facebook page? You can just think about all of these different ways that you can integrate your social media marketing into your other marketing initiatives, because Remember, if we want to be really great social media marketers and great digital marketers, we have to understand that we can't be doing our work in a silo and only look at what's happening on our Facebook page or on our Twitter accounts or on our Instagram. We have to be looking at things from a much larger perspective to be really good at the niche as well. So there are a couple other things that you might want to consider and just things to keep in mind when we're creating Facebook ads. The first thing is relevance scores. So when you are advertising on Facebook, it will, based on the engagement with your ad, you'll be assigned a relevancy score, and this plays a major role in your in the auction bidding and just how effective your marketing can be. So if people, if you're on Facebook and you see an advertisement or you see a post, you can say hide post or I don't want to see posts like this anymore. When people do that to your advertisement, it dings down your relevancy score. When you are winning bids and you're being shown to, like 1,000 people and nobody takes any sort of action on that, your relevancy score is going to go down. So this is right from Facebook in their section on ad relevance. So you can go to that site. It's also in your additional reading. So you can see that this is the same ad, but different targeting options. So you'll see this first one was only targeted to men and women age 18 to 34 that live in the United States. That's incredibly broad, and they are they're advertising handbags. So not super relevant to this entire audience target. So that gets a 2 out of 10. Really horrible relevance score. If their advertisement is shown, it's going to cost a ton of money, and they're probably not going to get the click-throughs that they're hoping for. So then this is a second version of this ad, the exact same copy, the exact same creative, but they've changed the targeting to women, same age that live in the United States. Okay, a little bit more relevant, women, handbags, whatever. So that gets a 5 out of 10. Not a great relevancy score. So then you look at the final version and you've got women aged 18 to 34 living in the United States that are interested in fashion. So this is much more targeted. I think that you could continue going a little bit farther down the road, but this is an example that could give you something like 8 out of 10. So how do you increase your relevancy score? Well, this is directly from Facebook. Be specific. The message and the image that you use, or the message and the visual, must fit with your audience. You don't want to use the same ads over and over again. So we already talked about this, that you don't want to run the exact same ad for an entire year. People are going to get sick of it and they're just going to scroll right through it. Oh, I've already seen that content. Don't need to see it anymore. You want to test your ads. You want to see what works. So this is an example of testing. You can do super broad and get a really bad relevancy score, or go way targeted and get something much better. You also want to test your photos. So if you use more than one photo, it's going to show up differently. And then, as that advertisement's running, you're going to see which which photo in that ad set is the most effective, and you can turn off ones that aren't. So when you have an advert set and you've got your 6 different images, you can see how well each ad is performing once you start running it. So when a photo isn't performing as well as you'd like it based on the impressions or your click-through rate, you can switch it off in your adverts manager. And also, you don't want to be offensive. So the more offensive you are, the more likely people are going to be to report your post or to hide your post. So, it's not about being super politically correct. It's about knowing your audience and making sure that you aren't doing anything to make those people react poorly, because as an advertiser, that's not what we're trying to do anyways. So the fine folks at AdEspresso, who really focus on Facebook advertising, did this really great experiment. So what they did was they ran 2 different ads, and they targeted them differently. So on the left, this one had a relevancy score of 8, and this one on the right had a relevancy score of 2.9, and you can see the difference. So they are trying to get their Facebook advertisement, their free ebook of 100 or 500 Facebook ads that will inspire you. So as a Facebook marketer, I say, oh, that's very interesting. I want to click for sure. But every time you click to download that book, it's going to cost them money. So the one with the higher relevancy score cost them $1.86 versus the one that had the low relevancy score, which was $3.13. So incredibly, there was an 86% increase in price with the lower relevancy. And this, I mean, percentage increase can get out of control if you're really doing a bad job of your marketing. So there's other considerations when it comes to leveraging Facebook content, and I didn't really know which section to fit this in, whether it was a content thing or if it was an advertising thing, because money might exchange hands. But anyways, we're going to talk about it here. Collaborations. So if you look at the Huffington Post's Facebook page, you will see posts that aren't always from the Huffington Post. So for example, they have this self-care post that they have shared, and it's by Canceled Plans. So they haven't added any extra comments to it. They haven't added anything. They just hit the share button. So that is a collaboration because the Huffington Post is in the business of making money. So there's a very good chance that Canceled Plans paid money to have the Huffington Post share that article. Additionally, the Huffington Post has some sort of collaboration with KTLA 5 News. And so there is... they've got the post that they're sharing, and then they've also added a little comment blurb, which was also probably paid for. So this is a way to kind of leverage larger audiences that exist. So the Huffington Post has a pretty big audience. There's more to that story. Wanted to get more viewership, so there was some sort of agreement made where the Huffington Post was going to share that story. Another example is Wired. Wired in New York magazines and the New Yorker seem to have some sort of deal for cross promotion. So whether it's that Wired knows that, they have audience members that New York Magazine knows that there are specific Wired magazine audience members that would be interested in this article, or I don't know if New York Magazine is also sharing Wired. There can be cross promotions like that, but this is a way that you can kind of leverage other brands to help increase your audience. So it's still important for you to make sure that your audiences are relevant. So if you're reaching out to companies, you want to make sure that there is some crossover in terms of your audience. And it's not necessarily just about exchanging money. It's also about making sure that each of you are getting something from it. So Wired is getting additional content that they can post that's going to be relevant for their audience, which is going to keep their audience engaged. And New York Magazine is getting the Wired audience to see their article. And whether there was advertising money paid for Wired to promote this post, I'm not sure, but there's obviously these collaborative efforts that you can take advantage of as well. Okay, Facebook dark posts. They are also now called ads posts or adverts posts, depending on your Facebook language settings. Facebook dark posts are newsfeed posts that just look like a standard page post that show up in people's newsfeed but are not posted on to your Facebook page. So if you've ever, I see this a lot with newspapers, I'll have been on Facebook and I'll reopen the app or reopen the page, and it's like, oh, I really wanted to read that advertisement, but I wanted to read that article, but I got distracted, and I know it was on the Huffington Post, and my page refreshes, and I lose that ad, and I can't find it when I scroll down. So then I go to the Huffington Post to try and find that article again, and I can't find it on their feed because it was a dark post. So this is a way of leveraging people's news feed without bombarding your existing audience with a ton of content. So the way that you create a dark post is you go to, so in Power Editor, there's this thing called Page Posts. So we go to Page Posts, and we wait for it to load because it's a little bit slow. And basically what you can do is you can create posts. So this is in your adverts post. So right now my page is unpublished, so it's not going to be as effective, but this is basically what you do. So you go through and you create the post like you normally do. If you want, you can create a photo post where you can upload your image, you can post your text, but the most important part here is these two buttons on the bottom. So it's this post will only be used as an advert, or this post will be published on the page. So let's select a video. Okay, let's just use one of the existing ones. So I'm going to use this video. You've got your thumbnail, and then you write your post text, which could be something like, watch to learn more. So if I select that this post will only be used as an advertisement, I can create my post. So now I've already created this post, and when I go to create an advert in my advert section, all I need to use is this advert ID, and then this is going to be the post that everybody sees on my Facebook page. So in your additional reading, there is a link to more demos on how to do this, and I highly recommend you taking a look at those. This is not part of your assignment, so I'm not expecting you to create dark posts, but it is something that you consider when you're going through your assignment. All right, so let's take a quick look at that assignment. Okay, so this is assignment 2, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this lecture, advertisements could be an entire course on its own. So I'm not looking for you to go, crazy in depth with an insane ad strategy. It's really just about showcasing that you understand the basics of what we're doing. So building on the content strategy from last week and building on the personas that you created, build an advertising campaign. So there's no requirement for you to pay for an advertising campaign. So this is really just for planning purposes. So please, don't pay for an ad. However, if you are going to be running an ad campaign for a business because you are doing this class as part of your professional development, I highly recommend waiting for your campaign to be graded for feedback. So don't plan this campaign with a start date of like next week or the day after you hand in your assignment, because it's not going to be possible for me to grade it fast enough. So if you do want some feedback on your advertising campaign before you launch your campaign, maybe set it for June, a June start date, if you are going to be running this in real life. So you'll need access to Facebook Advertisement Manager and take screenshots of each stage in the process except of course the purchase process, because you're not going to be paying for your advertisement campaign. So first thing you need to do is identify your brand. What are you advertising? Are you advertising a brand, a product, a person, a service, whatever it is? Then you need to set your Facebook ad campaign objective. You need to justify your selection. So if your objective is sales, then you need to explain why you believe your audience is already at that stage of their customer journey, why you think that sales is a good place for you to go right off the bat. Then you need to define your audience target. Will you go broad? Will you go niche? Justify those decisions and relate it back to your campaign objectives, and then take a screenshot of the audience targeting decisions that you put into your Facebook campaign. So I want a screenshot that shows all of the different audience targeting. And then where are your placements going to be? So focus only on Facebook placement, not Instagram or Audience Network for this one. Are you going to use desktop? Are you going to use mobile only? So how is it going to work for you? Then you need to write your copy and design your creative and submit those screenshots. So your copy is the text that goes along with your advertisement. So in the advertising world, that's referred to as copy. And your creative is the image or the video that's going to be used. So keeping in mind that if you want to share a URL, you need to put a URL there. If you're using an imaginary company, you can use your imaginary URL, but make sure that you have some sort of information there. And then I want you to be submitting some real photos. So there's lots of different photo sites that you can use. There's Pixabay. You can use Pablo by Buffer. They have a bunch of stock images. There's Unsplash as well. So submit some image, submit actual text that you would use as advertising copy. And then determine your budget and campaign length. So how many days will your campaign run for? Which month will it run in? So be really specific about these things and then justify your decisions. And then think about what scheduling options you're considering. Are you going to go with, running it all the time, or are you going to try and target people at a certain time of day or a certain time of the week, and then justify why that is happening? So then in a Google Doc, not a Word doc, not a Pages doc, not a PDF, submit your assignment with the following headings: brand identification, campaign objective, audience target, placement, copy and creative, budget and schedule. And just a note, as long as you put your file into that shared folder, I don't need you to share it with me because you're flooding my inbox. So let me show you how Google Drive works. So here's the Google Drive. This is the stuff that I haven't shared with you yet. So in Facebook marketing, I have our shared resources file. So all I have to do is just highlight the documents that I've been working on behind the scenes. So you can have your own separate, documents that I don't see. But as soon as I then put it into this shared resource folder, I do want to share these items. They disappear from here, and now they're in our shared folder. So you'll be able to see those now. So as long as you put your folder or your file into your shared folder, I have all of your shared folders here. So as long as you're putting your file into that folder that you've shared with me, we're good. You don't need to send me an email because I can see the time that it was last modified. I can go in and there's a way for me to see the revision history. So you can see all of the different times. So I had taken off the old due dates because they're not applicable to you anymore. So this is how Google Drive works, very briefly. I know a lot of you are really worried that your assignments are not going to get to me. So just make sure that you are, just put it in your shared folder and I'll see it. Perfect, no need to reshare. And then of course you've got your rubric, which shows you, which portions are going to be worth more marks than others. And I think it's pretty straightforward from here on in. So that's it. I know that this is a really long lecture and I know that it's very in-depth, but I think, well, at least I hope that it is giving you a bit more insight into the world of Facebook advertising, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the advertising strategies that you guys all come up with.